It's amazing what 3 years in retirement will do for you. Man, I just got off the horn with these guys, freaking crushing. And it's amazing because when we first started working together, let me get old poppies. They're ready to hang up the boots. You know what I'm saying? They're like, they were in their early 60s and such. And they spend a decent amount of money. Sorry about the moving around here. Just had to get old Pablo out. They're not afraid to spend. Let's just put it this way. But the numbers were good. They weren't great, but they were good. Worth taking a risk simply because I come at it very conservatively. Worth taking a risk, though, for what they were trying to do. This is in 2022 we were working together. All right, and you remember what happened in 2022? The bond market got hit worse than ever, literally ever in histoire. The stock market was in a bear market. It came out of the bear market, but still is down, 18%? Oh, no, one goes out and one comes in. And there goes this guy. He hears me talking to somebody. He's like, who you talk to, Dad? Who you talk to? So we just revisited our plan with that we had from 2020. I think it's 2022. And now they're shooting the moon, man. I mean, or let's shoot the moon, whatever it is. I don't know what's called. Lassoing the moon. Because the markets have done so well. So let's just say what used to be a 75%, 80% probability is now a 92% probability. Very aggressive portfolio, spending a lot of money. And a lot of money is, subjective, I get you. But in terms of what they're spending, they got the resources to pay for it. But still, and that was a significant improvement of where they were 3 years ago because the markets did so well. I cannot not stress enough. When you're running a Monte Carlo scenario, all right, all it is doing is saying, what is your portfolio today? Not what happened in the past, just what is it today? What's our average rate of return and standard deviation? That's it. That's all that matters. It doesn't say today, well, the market did poorly last year or did great last year. It doesn't say anything like that. It just says this is how much we have. This is how many years we have in front of us. Here's our average rate of return and our standard deviation. Can we make this work? And after 3 years, to include a bear market and then two massive upsides, I was only giving them 5.5% rate of return. And they got, 22 and 25%? So they're down 18. I can't remember. I think it was in May of 2022. I think we worked together. So let's just say they're down 20% that year. We'll say you had $1 million. You're down 20%. So now we're at $800,000. All right. Now we times 1.25 times 1.25. Now they got 1.25 million. 3 years later. All right. So they got 25% more than what they had. Because if you're down 20%, you got to be up 25% just to break even. And now they're up another 25%. All right. And they were spending money as well. So not only do they make back what they had, they also have 3 years behind them, which means 3 years less they got to finance retirement. And they spent some money too. I'm just sitting there thinking it's amazing. And so their portfolio now is stronger than it used to be. On top of that, they have 3 years less of life because they're 3 years older. On top, they spent this money, so the money's already been spent, which means all the big ticket items, like they're going to have their mortgage paid off in a couple of years, their car is paid off. You see what I'm saying? And yet they're still went up from I think it's 75% to 92% now. It's amazing to me. I can't remember if we adjusted our Social Security or not. I forgot. A couple of years in retirement. And the guys told me, he said, in the last business trip I took, I got sick. I'd never been sick on a business trip before. I got back. I told my wife, my beautiful, beautiful, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And I said, well, dude, there's a risk to hang up your boots. He said, I'm ready to take that risk. I can do consulting if I need. I'm ready to take that risk. And now I don't need to do consulting anymore. Now again, worst case scenario. This is what I tell people all the time. In their case, between he and his better half, they're going to make $96,000-$100,000 a year in Social Security with no debt. That's the worst case scenario. That means all your money is gone. $96,000 a year in Social Security with no debt. That's your worst case scenario. And no taxes, by the way, because all Social Security, if you're only income Social Security, there's no taxes. So I'm running Monte Carlos now, and again, Monte Carlo, again, bakes into the equation that you could have this massive downside. In their case, it's a 5.5% assumed rate of return, average rate of return with a 13.5% Monte Carlo standard deviation. So 13 times 3 is 39 minus 5. So that's a 33% downside, all right, on an 80-20 portfolio. On any given year, they could be down 33%. That's happened, what, one time in 2008? And Wellington was down, as well, it's not 80-20, but one time in 2008, basically. So I'm saying that could happen again, and you're still at 92%. So we're baking into the system. You could have another 2008, which only happened in 1 year ever when you factor inflation. And even then, I'm still using it. We're not adjusting inflation downward like what happened in 2008, like what happened in 1931. We're still using the same inflation, 5.5% for Medicare, 3 on everything else essentially. So basically 3.5 when all said and done, all in inflation. And yet we're down 33%. Never happened like that before. 2008, inflation was basically nominal. It was nothing, I should say. And now they're at 92%, assuming that we get that worst case scenario. Whereas before they're at 75. Now, what if they retired into 2000? Yeah, that's a challenge, man. 100%. But again, the Monte Carlo shows you. If you retire, it shows you what could happen if we have these downside risks on top of each other. One downside risk is not equal to the second because they're completely irrelevant. Monte Carlo does not look at the past. It just says, we're rolling these die. The die doesn't remember what happened last year, the 2 years previously. It does not. It's kind of like when you're flipping a coin. You have 10 straight heads. What's the likelihood you get another head? It's 50% because the coin doesn't remember what happened last time. Anyway, it was great. I said, man, just think if he stayed in work. Now, again, we got lucky, but we didn't get lucky because 2022, the market fell. The worst bond market ever. But just think if they would have stayed at the crappy old job. You know what I'm saying? And, he would have gained extra money for his retirement, but he would have lost 3 more years of what he could do with his better half. Yeah, he took a risk. Man, sometimes you got to take a risk. All right, love your thoughts. God bless. Don't forget to smash that like button.